Last time, I apologized. Not to him, not to the people who misunderstood me, not even to the moments I wish I could redo. I apologized to her, the woman I kept asking to wait, the woman I kept promising soon, the woman I kept dressing down so she would be easier to carry through other people's expectations. And I thought, that would feel like the end of something, like closure, like arrival. But what actually came after was much quieter, stranger, less emotional, more unsettling. Because once you stop apologizing for who you are, once you stop trying to earn your place, once you stop trying to make yourself smaller just to survive other people's reactions, there's a moment where everything goes still. Not peaceful still, unmoored still. And in that stillness, there's only one question left standing in the room with you. If I'm not waiting to be forgiven, if I'm not waiting to be chosen, if I'm not waiting to be ready, then what exactly am I waiting for? That's where this episode begins. Because it turns out, the hardest part isn't becoming her. It's realizing no one is coming to hand you a permission slip to do it.
Her. O-S. What if the life you've been waiting for has been waiting for one decision? Not permission, not certainty, not confidence. Just one honest step. Sometimes the longest wait is the one we create ourselves. There's a guide in reflection designed by self-OS. It's called Pause Before You React. 6 questions, 1 quiet moment, a way to notice where you've been waiting and where you're finally ready to begin. The link is in the show notes. Now, back to her OS.
I didn't realize I was waiting for most of my life. That's the strangest part. It didn't feel like waiting. It felt responsible. It felt mature. It felt like I was doing the right thing. I was waiting to feel ready, waiting to feel confident, waiting to feel healed enough, waiting to feel like I had proof I wouldn't mess it up. I thought life required readiness, like there was some invisible threshold I had to cross before I was allowed to begin. So I stayed in preparation mode. I researched, I thought, I planned, I replayed conversations I hadn't even had yet. I imagined every possible outcome so I wouldn't be surprised by anything. And I told myself that was wisdom. But looking back, it was fear wearing a very organized outfit. Because the truth is, I wasn't preparing for life. I was postponing it. I can see it now like a room, a waiting room. Neutral colors, soft lighting, everything just comfortable enough that you don't realize how long you've been sitting there. And I was sitting there with my whole life in my hands. Dreams I didn't act on, words I didn't say, decisions I delayed until they became outdated. And I kept thinking, not yet, not yet, not yet. Until one day I realized something uncomfortable. There was no door opening ceremony coming. No announcement. No moment where the universe would tap me on the shoulder and say, okay, now you're ready. Because readiness isn't something you receive. It's something you build while you move. And I think the hardest truth I've had to sit with in this is waiting felt safer than choosing. Because waiting meant I couldn't be wrong yet. Waiting meant I couldn't fail yet. Waiting meant I didn't have to find out what I was actually capable of. But waiting also meant something else. It meant I was slowly disappearing from my own life. Not all at once, just a little every year. A little less bold, a little less honest, a little less me. And the cost of that is something you don't notice immediately. You notice it later in the quiet, when you realize you've been practicing your life instead of living it. And suddenly you understand. There was never an appointment. There was never a line. There was never a moment where someone was going to call my name. It was always just me, sitting there, holding the key, waiting for permission to use it.
Installing her OS.
So here it is, the apology that I owe her. Not to him, not to the people I loved who got a smaller version of me than they deserved. To her. I'm sorry I made you prove yourself in every room you ever loved someone in. I'm sorry I turned every relationship into a courtroom where you always were somehow on trial. I'm sorry for every need I made you shrink before you were allowed to voice it. Every feeling I made you justify before you were allowed to feel it. I'm sorry for every time you started to say, I need more from you, and turned it into, I'm sorry, and then let it go. I'm sorry for every time you felt joy, real, uncomplicated, unguarded joy, and I looked around the room first to make sure everyone else was okay before I let you have it. As if your happiness needed a permission slip. As if your delight was only valid once you confirmed it wasn't inconveniencing anyone. I'm sorry for every relationship I brought you into already apologizing, already half gone, already so busy managing the distance between who I was and who I thought I needed to be to make someone stay, that you barely got to show up at all. I'm sorry I taught you that love was something you earned by needing nothing. By being easy, by being grateful, by being so uncomplicated, so low maintenance, so careful never to be too much, that you forgot you were allowed to be anything at all. And most of all, I'm sorry I let his sentence become your sentence. He said he didn't want kids and you were a kid and the only math available to you was that this was about you. It wasn't. It never was about you. It was about a man who didn't have the capacity to meet what was in front of him. And I know that understanding it doesn't make it stop hurting. You can know something completely and still feel the shape of it in every room you've ever tried to earn your place in. And that's allowed. But I'm not going to keep making you pay for his limitations. Not in one more relationship, not in one more sorry you didn't know, not in one more need you had to justify before you were allowed to have it. That ends here. That ends now. You were never the problem. You were never too much. You were never the kind of thing that people decide against. You were a child who deserved to be chosen by someone who wasn't capable of it. And I'm so sorry it took me this long to tell you so.
The loop doesn't stop just because you want it to. The same reaction, the same thought, the same automated response, running over the same neural track. You aren't broken. You're just running old code. Break the pattern. How to interrupt automatic thought and reaction. A practical framework written by Tom Lawhorn Jr. It's not about willpower. It's about awareness. Understanding the behavioral loop before the grip tightens. Available now on Amazon. The manual for your system is finally here. Break the pattern.
There's a version of you who never does any of this. She's not dramatic. That's what makes her so believable. She doesn't have some catastrophic ending. She just has a life that gets quieter every year, a little more agreeable, a little more careful, a little more willing to call the absence of conflict peace. You probably know her schedule by heart. Same rhythm, same silence you've learned to live around. Same conversations you haven't had because having them feels like more trouble than not having them. And you've told yourself that's maturity. That's choosing your battles. That's just what life looks like from here. She's still capable, still kind, still, by every outside measure, fine. But somewhere underneath, a little more sealed off each year. A little more resigned to the idea that this is simply the shape of things now. And shapes don't change at this point. They just get lived in. She wouldn't be unhappy exactly. She'd be distant from herself, present in her life, but not really living it, watching it from a slight remove. The way you watch something you've already decided not to interrupt. And here's what I need you to hear. She's not some cautionary tale. She's not a warning. She's you at the fork, choosing the path with fewer questions on it. And I understand her completely. I know exactly why she chooses what she chooses. It's safer. It's kinder to everyone around her. It asks less of everyone, including herself. But I know what she misses. Not adventure, not some dramatic reinvention. Just this. The chance to actually look at her own life and ask if it's hers. The chance to find out what's underneath the careful. So the question I want you to leave with isn't about her. It's about the fork you're standing at right now. Because you're not too far down the road. You're not past the point of asking. The only thing that makes the difference, the only thing, is getting tired enough of almost everything to do something about it. Not courage, just enough tiredness with the waiting room to stand up and walk out of it. Are you tired yet?
Understanding your pattern in your mind is only half the battle. Real change requires changing your environment. If you're ready to bring intentional regulation into your daily life, the official store is live. Go to installselfos.com/store. There, you will find real-world tools and resources engineered to ground your nervous system and disrupt the autopilot. Somatic anchors like premium weighted blankets and physical Pomodoro timers, alongside books and guides available in both print and digital formats depending on how you choose to study. Everything you need to transition from theoretical awareness to daily, deliberate practice. Bring the code into the physical world. Go to installselfos.com/store. Explore the ecosystem and take full ownership of your operating system today. Installselfos.com/store.
You've been waiting for someone to say it's okay. And maybe you know exactly who you wanted it from. A parent, a partner, a version of yourself that finally felt ready enough to be trusted. But here's what I want you to sit with. What have you been postponing until that permission arrives? Not the big things, not the obvious ones, the quiet ones. The ones you've been calling not yet for so long that the phrase has started to feel like a permanent address. The conversation you keep rehearsing but never having. The version of yourself you keep describing to people who ask what you really want, as though she lives somewhere in the future and hasn't arrived yet. The thing you've wanted to say to yourself, to someone else, out loud, in writing, in the way you walk into a room, that keeps waiting for conditions to be just right. Permission was never going to be a moment. It was always going to be a pattern, a series of small decisions you keep handing to someone else to make for you. And they don't feel like big things while they're happening. They just feel like being careful, being considerate, being the kind of woman who doesn't make things uncomfortable, But discomfort is not the enemy. Discomfort is what growth feels like before you recognize it. It feels like friction, like resistance, like stepping out of an identity you've outgrown while still wearing its shape. So I want you to ask yourself something honest. Who's on your committee? Whose voice do you run your decisions past before you let yourself make them? Whose approval are you still organizing your life around, even when they're not in the room, even when they're gone? Because they don't get a vote. They never did. They are remembering versions of you that no longer exist. And the only thing standing between you and the life you keep describing as someday is the moment you stop waiting for someone to hand you the paper. Nobody's coming to authorize your life. They were never supposed to. The only signature that was ever required was yours. So sign it.
S.
When the nights get heavy, remember this. You were never missing permission. You were missing practice. Practice choosing yourself. Practice trusting your own voice. Practice standing still when it would be easier to shrink. The life you keep waiting to be allowed into has never been waiting for you to enter it. Not as the version of you that has it all figured out, but as the version of you willing to begin anyway. The door was never locked and the room was never closed. And the woman you keep searching for, she's not ahead of you. She's what happens when you stop waiting to be told you can begin. So sign your name, turn the key, and step in. She's already there, and she's been ready this whole time.
This was a production of Self-OS. Awareness is power.